You guys? Yeah. Girls? Go ahead, fire away.
When you were making the decision to get down to the 53 roster, what were some of the hardest cuts that you, or hardest position groups that you had to, kind of settle through and get through?
Well, these decisions are made throughout camp. I think Todd and I pretty much were on the same page at one point. Then it wasn't, we didn't make them at the final moment, So, but we had some depth at receiver. We had some depth at outside linebacker. We ended up keeping 6. You have to take a look at what you think you can get back on the practice squad and all those types of things. So I think those were some of the tough ones. They're all tough. They're all tough, releasing players. But, this weekend's never, now it's the week, but it's typically never an easy time for any of us. But we got through it, and now we move forward. We put a practice squad together here. As soon as I'm done here, that'll be a fluid process. But, then here we go, ready to play the first week.
What was it about Cam Johnson that really stood out and helped him make this roster as an undrafted free agent?
He really earned it. He all through OTAs and then training camp. We saw it in OTAs. He's just a really explosive athlete. Works very hard. It's very important to him. You would think that he came from a very high level program. The way he approaches things and the knowledge that he has already. So Barton has done a great job there in 4 years. And he's a playmaker. So. We're very excited to see him in the regular season.
Of the 53, are there a couple you'd point to as the ones that maybe moved up the most that maybe wouldn't have been on a 53 at the start of camp but got there today? It's still fluid. There's still players that, to be quite frank, may not. You never know how things. We always have our eye on other players that may not be on the team tomorrow. So they may or may not. I'm not trying to send a message or anything. So just saying that's just the way it goes. It's like the practice squad. It's very fluid. What we put together today may not be the same thing as is next week.
Todd was saying last week that this is not the deepest team. He said some areas are deep, other areas are pretty thin. Any concerns with the areas that are thin and maybe a way to address that?
Well, yeah, you're always looking. You're always, throughout the year, we are always bringing guys in for workouts. I think my team has done an outstanding job every year doing that. You could be coming off back-to-back Super Bowls and you're going to think you're thin in some areas. So, Todd's been a part of some very deep teams. So, to say that this isn't the deepest team doesn't necessarily mean that we think we're weak in areas. It's just maybe not as deep as it was in 2020 when we won the Super Bowl.
How do you think your 2 new starters up front offensively, Jason, will energize this ground game?
So far, they've done a great job, both of them. So Graham has really answered the bell. Ben has been fit right in. He's got just a great way about him in that room too. He's 2-time captain of Michigan, and very few people can say that. So, but his ability though too, he's been a real pleasant surprise for us.
What can you say about the running back room? It's a fairly young group, but they're developing heading into the regular season.
Yeah, that's a great room. A lot of energy, like you said, especially with young guys like Buck and Sean that have really shown vast improvement in just all through camp. It's a dynamic room. Everybody brings a little something different to the table, but they're all very explosive players in their own regard.
Jason, we all know the draft is very, very hard, and all of your draft picks made the team. It's been like this the last couple of years. You're probably at the top when it comes to that. What do you think is the reason why you guys have been successful the last couple of years with draft picks?
Well, it starts with my staff, and I'll always say that. They do a phenomenal job. We've been together a long time, and John and Mike, Beal and Rob McCartney, and then my scouts, I could sit here all day. I would name every single one of them, so I don't want to leave one of them out. They do a phenomenal job. They know what I'm looking for when they present it to me, and they whittle it down, and I look at the players and make the final decision along with Todd, but make the final decision. Then I'm not having to swim through a lot of things. No, this isn't what I want. They're all
we're all aligned. So that's number one. Number two, though, is, you know, just because a lot of players make your team draft picks doesn't mean that that's good. I mean, in our case, we think it is. We think that they're all very good players, but, you know, you could select 15 guys and then I could tell Todd they're all making the team and they could be no good. But in this case, they are. So we're excited about it. I love the process that we have with the coaches and how they're involved, and we all get along.
What kind of growth have you seen from Baker from, you know, this time last year, you know, he had just been named the starter, to what you saw in camp this year?
You know, he was very focused last year. There's just a little bit different gleam, I would say, in his eye, and I think a little bit maybe have to do. He's a father now. He's very. Once again, this is not saying he wasn't mature, but he's just seems to be a little bit more. He's got a little bit more to prove, which is I'd love to see. I love when people say things about him and doubt him. It energizes this entire team.
When you look at the roster construction and coming up with the 53, you kind of went light at wide receiver with only 5 there. But with the new rules of the practice squad, you're going to have up to 3 elevations per player. Does that kind of factor in some of your decisions when you're like, okay, we can go a little bit lighter here because we know we have these elevations to use?
Absolutely. It's one of the best rules that they ever put in place. So we love it. So they're an extension of the 53. So then you have to play the chess game of who you're going to elevate. You don't want to run out of elevations, and you want to try to save them as long as you can, and then, you know, all that kind of stuff. So, but it's absolutely keep that in mind.
It's no secret that you're a Mike Evans fan. A lot of people are. But just what's it like for you, you know, from your vantage point, watching him year after year, like every milestone and just all these different records every year, they just keep falling. And just what's it been like for you to kind of watch that? And what are your expectations and your hopes for him this year?
You know, he just wants to win. So that's the great thing about him. He just wants to win. And whatever happens when you're winning, good things are happening to him. So, but it couldn't happen, these kind of milestones couldn't happen to a better person. So you know that he holds a very special place for me, in my family, but I feel like it's the same with any fan you talk to. They feel the same way. He's one of those players that they feel they know on a personal level just because they've followed him for so long and like to follow him.
You had a couple of years ago with one of the older teams in the NFL. Now you've kind of grown a couple of years to one of the youngest. What has that process been like, and does this past stretch, does it feel a little bit like a college program where you lost a bunch of seniors and, you know, you've got Zion out there, you know, in the 3rd year he's developed, and what has it been like getting these guys up to speed and really the youthful growth here?
Well, it's one thing great, the coaching staff, Todd and his coaches, they're not afraid to play young guys. They love to develop young guys, and that makes our job, my job, really easy because we love young talent. We don't love getting rid of older guys. That's not the point, you know. We want what's best for the football team, and in the last couple of years, it has been because of the salary cap, because of the dead money that we had. We had to bring in. I mean, it was crucial for us to draft well and to have undrafted free agents on this team just to survive, because with the debt that we carried. So it worked out that way. We're very happy with the way it's worked, and now we're hoping to win this year too.
Jason, most of the experts and pundits, they're all picking the Atlanta Falcons to win the NFC.
That's great.
Are you still keeping receipts, Jason?
Only when they take shots, but they should be picking the Falcons.
How important is
What excites you most about this season?
Just, you know, the second year with Baker at the helm, at the position, at quarterback, the growth of our offensive line, what we've done with the run game so far in preseason, hopefully that transfers over to the regular season, but everybody's very excited on that side of the ball for what we are capable of with the run game, which is going to help the entire team. It'll help ball control, it'll help the defense, it'll help the passing game, everything. So those are some of the things I'm excited to see, hopefully, continue.
What did you see out of a guy like Tyreek Funderburg to make the team? Obviously, you know, he got banged up there a little bit. Then Keenan Isaac goes out and has a stellar preseason. Just thinking about the Panthers, by the way. Thanks a lot, Dave. But what did you see out of a guy like him to say, all right, we need to have this guy on here?
He's very smart. He's got decent size. He's got speed. He's a physical player. He's a physical player. He likes to tackle. And he just has natural instincts and patience when he's out there in coverage on an island. It's something that you either have or you don't, and he's got it. So we saw a lot. He's got great ball skills as well. So we see a lot of upside with him. I don't know if we're going to throw him out. Todd's going to throw him out there week 1 or not, but we feel like he's pretty close to us doing that. He's been one of the more exciting players at that position, young players that we've had since I've been here.
What are your expectations for Chris Godwin, Jason, contract year, going back to a different position that he's comfortable with? What kind of year do you think he's going to have?
Contract year or not contract year, you're going to get the same with Chris, and he's going to give us everything. He's going to empty the tank. He looks better than he has in the past couple years because of the time away from the injury that he's had, and I think he feels very comfortable and very comfortable where the new spot that we're in. So that's a good thing.
Old spot?
Yeah, the new old spot.
Jason, when you were scouting Jalen McMillan, did you expect him to have such a quick jump and build that chemistry so quickly with Baker?
Well, we knew it was capable of. We knew what he was capable of, and when we did the process, people were telling our scouts there that at one point, he was a little dinged up that last year, that he was the go-to guy, that he was capable of being as good as those other guys that went in front of him, and they were very good players. So it doesn't surprise me, but it's sure been great to watch. So do that.
How important has things like chemistry, team bonding off the field, finding the right guys in the locker room, how has it led to finding success for this team over the years?
I think it's important. I think anybody else would tell you it's important. It doesn't necessarily mean if you could, if you could have the best, closest team ever. It doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna win. But I can tell you, if it's the opposite, it's pretty much a recipe for disaster. So it's better to have it the way it is than not. And it's one of the better, more cohesive groups I've been around.
Jason, are you satisfied with your depth along the defensive line, or is that an area that you might be looking for some help?
It's always an area that we'd be looking for, always.
Defensive line,
Few
can
more?
you just talk about the decision process with some of those guys? You have a mix of veterans, but also some younger guys as well that you had to choose from.
Are you talking offensive line? I'm sorry.
Defensive line.
Defensive line. Will proved again this year that he's what he's capable of, and he's just, old Ironsides. He's going to go out there and give us everything he's got, and he still can play. We've got Vita, Kalijah. All those guys. We have some very, very good players, and we have Greg Gaines. I can't say enough good things about him. They're always looking for maybe some possible young players that are ascending that you can add to your roster. So we'll always keep looking for that.
What do you attribute your success the last 4 or 5 years in the overall draft scheme? And did you make changes in the process 4 or 5 years ago that has helped you hit the mark better?
Well, I don't want to give away secrets too much, but I alluded to it before. I have a great staff. So the secret to being successful is having, I want to be the dumbest guy in the room, which isn't hard. But these guys are very, 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 very good. And these guys and girls that I have working on the scouting staff. But several years ago, I kind of made a commitment to let's go after the high character. They have to be able to play, but let's stay away from the guys that we have concern about. And it's hard. It's hard to resist the temptation. And I've taken more players off the board in the last few years so I would resist the temptation of taking them. And for the most part, we've been spot on and glad that we didn't take them.
So you analyzed the mistakes?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and sort of there was a common denominator?
Common denominator in the type of player that's turned out to be a great player.
Jason, all the cuts are definitely hard over the years that you have to make at this time. Is there anyone that stands out in your mind particularly that you had to make that was the hardest cut I had to make at this time of year?
Like I said, they're just all very, very hard. They're all very hard, and I probably wouldn't want to publicly talk about some of them, but it's some of the older guys that have been around for a long time, and when you have to tell them that they don't have it anymore, that they're not athletically capable of being a top end player anymore, or even a backup. That's hard.
Jason, a lot of years
last one? You guys will add somebody before camp, even during camp. You guys have basically almost status quo, really since like June 1. Does that just speak to your confidence in the depth and the familiarity of what you have back from last year?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. But we've added some players this year late that came on and did some good things for us, and Ernest Brown's one of them. So we're very excited about him. So, all right, thanks, guys.
Thanks, Jason.